Hello, we can hear a conversation in the background, so if all parties would like to please mute themselves, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Hey Dale, this is Ashley. We are connected to YouTube, and it looks like we have 5 of 7 members.
I'm here, Ashley.
Thank you,
Sonny.
Sunny.
Yep.
Hi, Sonny.
Hello. Hi, Dale.
Okay, well, in that case, I am gonna call to order the Cuyahoga County Finance and Budgeting Committee meeting for Monday, October 5th, 2020, and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Calling the roll, Mr. Miller,
Here.
Mr. Tuma,
Here.
Ms. Simon,
Here.
Mr. Gallagher,
Here.
Mr. Schrein. Mr. Schrein is absent at the moment. Ms. Brown,
Here.
Ms. Baker.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And the next item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comment that's been sent in?
No, Mr. Chair, no one submitted any public comment.
Thank you very much. And item number 4 on the agenda is approval of the minutes for the September 21st, 2020 meeting of this committee. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Brown, so moved.
Simon,
Thank you.
second.
Okay, we have a first from Councilwoman Brown and a second from Councilwoman Simon to approve the minutes as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion is approved for the minutes. And we have one piece of legislation that has been referred. That's item number 5 on the agenda, Resolution 2020-0213. I would ask the clerk to please read that item into the record.
Resolution number 2020-0213, authorizing an amendment to contract number CE 1800177 with Relix Inc., doing business as LexisNexis, a division of Relix Inc., for print and online legal research services for various county departments and agencies for the period January 1st, 2018 to December 31st, 2020, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2023, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $723,091.20.
Thank you very much. That item's now before the committee. Who from the administration will be presenting on behalf of the resolution?
Good afternoon. This is Jonathan McGorry from the Cuyahoga County Law Department. I'm here to present and answer questions. So to begin, in 2017, the County Law Department issued an RFP for online legal research and related services. This is the software that allows all the attorneys at the county, not just in the law department, to do various legal research, checking on cases, statutes, making sure cases are current. And the provider, the contract was awarded to Relix, which provides LexisNexis to provide these services. These services are provided to attorneys in the offices of the prosecutor, the public defender, the inspector general, clerk of courts, common pleas court, 8th District Court of Appeals, juvenile court, probate court, law department, county council staff, and the law library staff, as well as patrons of the law library. So the original contract was for 3 years, and it included a 3-year option, which was negotiated at that time in order to set the rate. So I'm here today to request authority to enter into that 3-year option. The initial 3 years ends at the end of this year. So I'm here today requesting authority to exercise that option. Before I began the process to renew this contract back in January, I reached out to all the departments and agencies at the county that use this service to see if they're happy with it, if they had any issues with LexisNexis, and if there are any additional services they would have liked to see added to the contract. Of all the departments and agencies that got back to me, everyone said they were happy with LexisNexis and had no complaint. And since this is the only extension mentioned in the agreement, if this amendment is approved, the county law department will begin an RFP process for a new agreement before this amendment expires. So we will probably begin that effort in 2023. So with that, thank you for your time, and I will answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions by my colleagues?
Mr. Chairman, this is.
Yes,
Councilwoman
Ms. Brown.
Thank you so much. I'm just curious if the contract amount will remain the same or will it increase or decrease?
It will increase slightly, but those rates were set back in 2017 when this initial contract was entered into. They knew that prices would likely increase a little bit. So I do believe it does increase a little bit.
And is that for all 3 years, or is it like an incremental annual, kind of like a COLA, if you will, attached to the contract? Can you say for sure?
I can't say for sure. I know I just put in the amendment and not to exceed amount. I
Okay.
believe it's the same amount each of the 3 years, but I off the top of my head, I actually can't remember.
Okay, all right. And then the final question is, LexisNexis, the actual company is Relic. So is LexisNexis a universal software for attorneys, or is there something similar that other entities might use?
So in the legal world, basically there's Lexis on one hand, and then there's Westlaw on the other hand. So most major law firms, government entities use one or the other. There are a few other services that I remember learning about back in the day during law school. But those are the two heavy hitters in the legal research world.
Okay, thank you. And I see my colleague Sunny Simon kind of nodding in agreement. So I'll end my questions there. She is, I'll yield to her being the lawyer on our call today. So thank you. That concludes my questions, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Other questions by my colleagues?
Just, Mr.
Ms.
Chair, Councilman, yes, thank you, Councilwoman Brown. I was just going to point out that there's not even much competition with these softwares. It's two choices. So as long as we're used to using Nexus, Lexis, it has its own skill set. It's, it probably makes sense to continue.
Mhm.
I think that was a good question.
Mhm.
Right, John?
Oh yeah. I mean, I still am gonna put an RFP out next year. I know the way they get you is they get people hooked onto one service or the other, hoping that you'll continue to use it. But I can say from experience, when I was working with the city of Cleveland, they used Westlaw. Making the switch to Lexis over here wasn't an issue at all. So if there is a chance that we can get the two entities to compete with each other for a better price, I don't intend to go out for just another amendment after this one. I do want to see if we can keep our prices down by having them compete with each other.
And Mr. Chair, I've always used Westlaw, by the way. I think it's easier for me, but we're trained in all of them.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I do support having them compete against each other. I think that can be useful. And to Mr. McGorry, it sounded like you didn't know exactly what the percentage of increase was over the prior current existing contract. So I would ask if you could get back to us on that within the next couple days so that we can have that information before this legislation gets to the full council for vote.
Of course.
And the other question I have is, since this doesn't expire until the end of the year, am I correct that this can go for 3 readings as opposed to requiring suspension? Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, I'm not here to request a suspension of the second hearing.
Okay. And any other questions by my colleagues? If not, do I have a motion to move resolution 2020-0213 with a favorable recommendation to the full council for second reading?
Second. Did you make a motion, or is that my motion I'm making?
I'll make the motion and I'll take yours as a second.
Oh, sorry, I went off screen. Okay, yeah, I'll
Okay.
second. Okay.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, say no. And the resolution is recommended to the full council to go on for second reading at the next council meeting. So thank you very much. And item number 6 on our agenda is the update from the administration on ERP. So I would call Mr. Ryan and whoever else may be presenting forward to present that to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Jack Ryan presenting on behalf of the administration for ERP today. And hopefully I just switched to share screen. Can everybody see the screen at this point?
We're
Yes.
seeing the screen.
Okay, I will proceed then. Thank you. Okay, wanted to provide an update. It's been some time since I've been in front of the full Finance Committee for the update, so we'll provide an update with the program status, our finances, an update specifically on payroll and workforce management, the things that we have outstanding. So we'll move ahead here. First of all, just to give a sense for where we're at, we've been in the midst of lots of implementation activity. I would point out that we have, this is the issues resolution register that we maintain in summary form here. And I think I show that to the committee every time. But point being here that we're very much under control. We don't have, even though we've just implemented another set of modules, supply a strategic sourcing and contract management, we're not seeing a huge influx of issues as a result of that. We expect to see some increase just as people start to get into the module and use it more. But we feel like we're managing the existing implementations as they've moved into an operational status. I think the team is managing that well. I'd also point out that the same team that manages issues are the same people that do their day-to-day jobs in many of these areas, in fiscal and in procurement. And so it's, I always want to call that out because they're working hard to manage both sets of things, both implementing a new system and maintaining the existing system. From an overall program status, we're down to the last piece of the implementation is for phase 1 of ERP is for payroll and workforce management now, with the contract management and strategic sourcing are just going into post-go live support, and that will end here shortly. So we're down to the last 2 modules, and this is where we stand from an overall percentage complete for the program phase 1 status at this time. Just some updates in terms of what has been completed and what do we have outstanding, at least at a high level here. So in strategic sourcing and contract management, the vendor portal has actually been open since July 2nd. We only have 2,259 vendors registered at this time. We've trained 130 users in that new module. That training spanning a period of, I believe it was 5 weeks. So we spread that training out. Hopefully the people from the first of the 5 weeks remember their training as we go into production at this point. But there was a lot of people to be trained and a lot of detail there. And so we specifically took our time to make sure that we had people adequately exposed to the module and trained. We've had some major patch updates. We'll talk a little bit more in detail about that, but we have completed testing for all of the Lawson side of those upgrades. The Lawson part of the we have a couple of different platforms, Lawson and Landmark. Again, Lawson is where virtually all of the financial systems set. The Landmark platform is where global human resources, strategic sourcing, contract management, and treasury management set. So the Lawson testing has been completed. The Landmark patch testing has been completed. And we did a major upgrade to workforce management. The version that we're going to go live with is version 7. And that upgrade has been completed. And we've completed the patch update and validation testing for human resources, global human resources updates as well. We have an implementation of human resources, GHR, for non-executive agencies that we've been holding on based on some patches and corrections that needed to be made to security roles to make sure that people could only view their agency or department's data. We are ready to go to training at this point in time. All but one minor issue have been resolved, and so we're in the process of scheduling further training so that we can do that implementation, get people trained. This will take the responsibility for maintaining employees for 22 agencies and allow them to do that themselves, allow them greater access to the system. Also puts the responsibility for maintaining employee data directly with them as opposed to moving paper in and out of the administration building to make some of those things happen. For general ledger, we had I think when I previously reported, I think we had a couple of issues that were stopping closing for general ledger. Those have been cleared, and we have closed all the way through May, and we're either very close to or maybe even have closed June. I didn't check today, but so that's moving well. Once we get up to speed, up to date, and have everything closed through the current month, closing is expected to take 1 to 2 weeks, as opposed to a much longer period of time that it took to close under the famous accounting system. So we expect to see those benefits and the speed up on closing as we get this caught up.
So Jack,
Yes, sir.
am I correct that that the GHR was the area that we were still having some difficulty with the patch update at the end of last week, but you're now indicating it's been completed?
Yes, sir. I'll move on and just talk about that for just a moment.
Okay, good. Glad to hear that.
Yes, sir. But the short answer is yes, we've cleared that issue. And I'll talk about some detail on that in just a moment when we get to payroll. Okay. Other things that we're expanding footprint on to non-executive agencies, just a quick update on some of these areas. We completed training for 10 departments in grants management. There are 10 departments that are going to use that capability. But we're holding up on the implementation while the department's reviewing whether we should go to a lifetime budgeting approach versus an annual budgeting, annual budgeting approach for that module. And they've also published a grants management policy that ties back to the way that things are working under the new software. So that area is in pretty good shape. I think they'll finish their review on the approach they want to use before we roll it out to additional agencies. Okay. Asset management, there's essentially 2 steps to asset management rollout to other agencies. One is completing the training on just how to go in and identify or flag assets that should be tracked. And the second piece of that is how to do reporting out of that system. There's all kinds of different reports that you can gain out of an asset management system, as you can imagine. And so that training is now scheduled for October the 15th. Accounts receivable and billing, we're a little behind where I think we thought we were going to be. It's taken a little longer to configure individual departments that we're going to be implementing billing for. So that's, but I think we've figured out the configuration in terms of what needs to happen. The good news is that you can customize invoices by departments and groups. And so we're spending some time to actually do that, to have very professional looking invoices that go out. There was an issue with the handling of deferred revenue that we thought was going to have a much larger effect. It turns out there were 12 transactions affected, very minimal impact. It was, we cleared the problem and it was a procedural thing. And there's no long-term impacts of that to the accounting system. For accounts payable, one of the areas of biggest benefits here in terms of being able to decentralize some of that processing. The refresher training for the core group in fiscal has been completed. And the group, the fiscal accounts payable group, is working through preparing presentations that are going to be used for non-executive agency training. And fiscal has identified the 3 agencies that they want to go to first: Veteran Services, Adams Board, and BODD. So I think these areas are all moving. I would point out that when I presented the 2021 phase 2 list, moving these modules to non-executive agencies was really more slated for 2021 than it was for this year, but I think we're getting sort of an advanced start on this, and I think making pretty good progress. So, okay, see if I can make my screen work right here. This is the last time you'll see this slide, and I wanted to put it up here because it was all green primarily. So this is a good news story. This means that we've completely implemented strategic sourcing, contract management, everything related to vendor registration, accounts receivable and billing. The initial implementation has been completed. What I just described to you earlier was the leveraging of that implementation to other departments, but the core implementation required by Infor is done. Grants management and asset management on the bottom are also fully completed. So, so this does truly complete a total of 20 modules, all except 2. 20 of the 22 have been rolled out for the phase 1 implementation of ERP at this point.
So Jack, what's the
Yes,
total
sir.
number? What's the total number of vendors that when we have everybody registered, how many would that be?
Well, it's I'm not sure that I know the exact number. We would expect somewhere around 5,000 or 6,000 to at least to be registered. So we're sitting at about half now. I think that realize that we just turned on that capability for these agencies. I'm sorry, for all vendors to come in and register, in July. And we've just now started requiring that all new contracts go through the contract management software. So just the fact that they're now required to go through this route will sort of force the issue in terms of anybody that's not registered that wants to do business with the county will have to go ahead and do the registration. By the way, the entire registration process from start to finish, at worst case, probably takes 10 to 15 minutes. Probably be done faster than that. So it's pretty straightforward process. It's your company name, address, contact information, your TIN, and an email address, and you set up a password. It's really not very complex to register. So, and lots of notification was sent out, emails were sent out, mailings were sent out. So I think it's a matter of as soon as people are required to use it and want to do business or need to do a contract, that's when it'll start to pick up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Again, I just like the screen because it's all green, I think. So, all right. Payroll and workforce management. So a lot of discussion around this subject, right? So the question is, what are we doing different? Doing things differently to get different results. I guess would be the way I would word that. So we've got a new senior project manager, and we're increasing the level of accountability just across the board with everyone involved here. No more delays, unless it's something out of our control here. And so I think that's proving to be, well, Connie Geddes is the new project manager for this area and is rapidly taking control of all the moving parts there. We've got business users highly involved, not that they were just not involved before, but I don't think the right level of involvement necessarily. And so everybody's not only involved, but accountable and taking ownership of their particular piece of this. And there's a lot of different pieces in payroll. We'll see that in just a minute. But so that's something we put a lot of emphasis on. We're making some adjustments both to the county and contractor staff to make sure that we have the right people and the best people assigned to every area. We're doing that with minimal financial impact. I'll cover the financial impact when we get to the financial section, but we are making some changes just to make sure we're executing at the highest possible level here to ensure our success. The detailed project planning was done by the whole team this time. We wanted virtually everybody that was a stakeholder and that had responsibility involved in hearing their input, taking their suggestions and guidance. And I think the plan that we have together is solid at this point. And even more important than it's solid, and as important, it's agreed to by virtually everybody on the team. And that, I think that's very important, realizing we got a team that spans virtually every department here. So we've reviewed every aspect of the team and just ferreting out any tasks, anything that's either not working or doesn't need to be done. It seems like an obvious thing, but we're just really streamlining everything that we're doing, escalating anything that would cause a delay immediately. And I think one of the key things here is that we're changing to a very hands-on parallel approach. By that I mean, and it eliminates a lot of technical work. Previously, I know I'd mentioned that we've had data conversion challenges, and part of that, the way that affects parallel testing is that we, up to this point, had been taking files that from our legacy payroll system and SAP system for HR that were in a totally different format, trying to convert those into something that we could then run through to run a payroll. And just matching the coding from old to new it was challenging. And so what we've done is change the parallel approach so that what we're going to be doing is taking a percentage of a good representation of the population, having them actually do the entry, run those things through both the workforce management for hours collection and payroll, producing paychecks, and use that for the results. That's a much more real world approach and eliminates all of the technical side, or virtually all of the technical problems that we were having with parallels before. So that's a different approach. Okay. So what's happening now? We are continuing to work with NEAs on hours entry workshops. They're going to be entering their own hours directly into the payroll system. Similar to what they do now, they submit their hours separately. They don't go through MyHR, for example, now, or SAP. So we've accommodated all of that, and we're making sure they're trained on that. Garnishments workshops will continue. Garnishments are one of those very sensitive and fairly complex kinds of entries to be maintained. And so we're going to be doing complete garnishments entry with each parallel test. Preparing training material, they think that's going well. Infor has provided us virtually all of their training material. We take that and customize it the way we want it to look for the county with our own training department. So that's going well. We've completed production configuration validation. That's a major milestone, and we are in the process of taking that configuration, and that's the one that moves to production. We've, except for one area, there's one area that we found that there were some additions to, but it's virtually all there. Completed all of the detailed cutover planning, completed the patch validation testing that Dale referred to earlier. We're nearing completion on reviewing every single report. We wanted to make sure, of course, the standard payroll reports in the payroll system produces, but we have some custom requirements because of the kinds of interfaces, the kinds of things that we do with payroll. Everything from parking garage to just things like that are unique to what we're doing and require some special reporting. So we're finishing that up. And we have WFM parallel testing is in process right now. We did have one, as I said, one remaining area. We identified 37 new union and political action committee related deductions that were not at all obvious in the legacy systems. Just when we thought we had every single union covered, we discovered this last group. So those will require some additional work to get configured, and that's underway. So the patch updates that caused the delays, I'm happy to report that everything is green here, just to put that emphasis behind that. These were the areas that I'd previously reported that were causing us major delays. The bad news is that there was at least about 2 months that this cost the team, and having to test and retest and try to identify what these problems were. The good news is that every single one of these has been resolved. So interfaces, GHR, WFM interfaces, benefits plan updates that were done, and we're pretty, as I mentioned earlier, we're pretty close to completing everything for non-executive agencies' rollout of their access to GHR. So what's involved now for open enrollment? Because none of these things act independently. When you start talking about everything that ties to employee records and payroll, and obviously this is one large, very intertwined network of things that happen. So on open enrollment specifically here, what we have completed, and when I talked to a subset of this group on Friday, we had not completed these things. So we've got all of the patch testing for GHR has been completed. The benefits patch testing has been completed. The update to the production system was completed. There were some issues around that. We were 2 days late, 3 days late, and later than we'd expected getting that done. Not anything on our side, but it was cloud services was having some issues with getting the patches installed. That's been resolved. So GHR production is up to date. And we have a copy, an exact copy of production and of its data and its configuration in a test area. And now we start, as of today, we were able to start open enrollment testing. So open enrollment is scheduled for the 19th, as you can see from this chart. And so we have full throttle ahead on testing these. There's 100 or so open enrollment scenarios that we have to walk through and make sure work correctly. So, so we're on target to make that date, bottom line, for open enrollment. Okay. I've been talking nonstop for a while. Any questions? I'll take a breath here. Anyone? Ms. Baker, I believe you're on mute.
I am off mute. If I may ask.
Okay.
Ms. Baker, please
Yeah,
proceed.
Thank you, Chair. I see that, today is what, the 5th, and tomorrow's the 6th.
Yep.
So are you, I know we talked about this earlier, just kind of reinforcing. You think that the 4th, you're a day behind, but you feel you're on task by the time you get to the 12th, you'll be testing, the testing will be completed. Any issues there that you're concerned about, given we're past the 4th?
There's nothing, well, I'll always be concerned until we're done, but there's nothing specific. The reports coming in today, as of this morning, as people were working through scenarios today, were that they had not, at least at this point, have not encountered any major issues. So any issues, I don't believe, actually. So we remain very hopeful on that date.
Okay,
Yep.
because this is an important milestone that could set us back if we don't meet this date challenge.
That's correct. It could. So it was, if I'd been sitting here, in fact, I'd talked with Jesse Drucker about this on Friday. And if we were sitting here at noon today or thereabouts, and we had not gotten over all of the production updates, if they hadn't been able to do that in cloud services, we made a decision that by the end of today, we would have to make a decision on the possible delay of open enrollment. that does not look like it's necessary at this point.
Good to know. Thank you, Jack. Thank you,
bet.
Chair.
Okay. So what's working in a payroll solution, and which areas are we still working on? Obviously, the red X's are areas where we're still doing some things, and I just wanted to. I'm not going to go through every single check mark that is working, but just a couple of things here on the red X's. So the Galaxy badge system. It turns out that we have a vendor, IPS, that runs that system and is doing the updates to that system, including what's necessary to interface it to workforce management so that we can run time clocks, for example, based on badges. And they had to do an upgrade to the entire Galaxy system in order to do the updates that we needed to interface to workforce management. So that's in process. It's been under contract for some time. We meet with that team at least once or twice a week, and don't expect delays out of that, but that is an area that we're watching closely. Also, just in terms of time clocks, it's been since all the time clocks are installed, actually physically installed at all the locations right now. I should point that out. So we're not too concerned about that. What we are going back and doing is retesting. Since it's been some time, it's been several months since those have been installed. We're going back to retest to make sure all the clocks are working correctly. We're also going back, since we've had in the midst of COVID and staff changes and everything that's occurred over the last few months, we really need to go back and retrain. Some of those folks are a new crew that's going to be doing the IT maintenance on these time clocks. So we're doing some of that. So I marked that as red until we get those things done and fully integrated. The time clocks work with WFM. That's been tested. That's the reason there's an X or a check mark by the interface. But just in general, we need to make sure that we clear everything, any problem that we see out of the time clocks. Also, with COVID, we were having to change the configuration on the time clocks. That's the other reason for the X here. We originally were going to do biometrics. Nobody wants to do biometrics now, I don't think. So we don't, you don't want to be behind 500 people with your bare finger touching that fingerprint thing. So that has to be removed in terms of configured out of our requirement. So that's where that is. On the right-hand side here, currently the way that we handle ACH files is that we produce the file out of the mainframe system, and then it manually gets loaded onto the bank secure website. And when we were trying to do an accelerated, staggered approach here, and we'll talk about that schedule in a minute, we thought, well, we could probably live with that and mitigate any security risk. With our new schedule, we felt it's best just to put the whole automated process in place so that there's nobody actually touching the file once it's produced from payroll. It goes out through the interface and over to the bank without having to be touched by anyone, and that reduces any possible risk of any cybersecurity breach or financial breach on the file. Okay. And certainly last but not least, the payroll reports, I mentioned that earlier, we have a fairly unique scenario where we produce, for example, some of these reports that we produce gets distributed to a wide audience of departments and agencies who then review those reports and send things back to make corrections. So we've got to do some fairly unique things on reports distribution, and we're doing that. We have the tools to do that, but that's a work in process to make sure that that's working correctly. So, and evaluating any other custom reports. As I'd mentioned, there's several that we know we need. They've been in progress for a while. We just need to get that wrapped up, and it's not wrapped up yet, so it gets a red X on the chart here. So this is just a very high-level view of the probably 80-plus pieces that make up the payroll solution. Not all of those pieces, as you can see, are inside of the Infor piece. We've got a lot of things that we wrap around that to make the county solution work for us. Okay. Okay. So we had I think last time we met, I said we were headed into a team workshop to work on the schedule. I've already told you basically what came out of that. The biggest thing that came out of that was a consensus that the team really wanted to go back to a so-called Big Bang implementation. And what that means is this. Of the different options on how to put our payroll implementation together to make sure that we had full buy-in from everybody in the team, this is really the approach that we're using. You can see that it started with this making sure that we resolve all the patch issues on the far left-hand side here. That was paramount to getting the rest of everything to work downstream. So we're finally there. We had some unexpected delays, but we're there. Completing the configuration, and then the most important thing here out of this process is once we get everything established here is 3 parallels, 2 for sure, and a third if we can do it. We think we can do the third, and we think we want to do the third if at all possible. So, you know, how quickly we're able to get through parallel processes here will depend on you know, how good our testing is and how good the results are coming out of the, you know, as we work our way through, and presumably we get better with each one of those. We will take a percentage of the population in each parallel of the entire employee population and run that through from entering an employee to entering hours in WFM, taking those hours into payroll and running it all the way through to checks. So that's, when I say full end-to-end parallels, that's what we're really talking about here, a combined full parallel. It's as production-like as we can make it at this point. Okay. So the schedule for the team right now, these are at least the highlights from the schedule here. All the core configuration has been validated. We understand exactly what the parallel requirements are. We're still working with fiscal and the team to, you know, finally, in a precise way, define the exit criteria for each one of those parallels. Adding those additional deduction codes, we're going to have Infor do that. Those are required, and they're working through that process. Reporting requirements I've already talked about. Interfaces and reporting. The technical structure that it takes to do that is currently all in place. That is, that you've got to have a place on the system to drop reports, pick up reports, make these distributions. You know, outside of the actual payroll system itself, everything that it takes to move reports and data to the right place for people to have access to it also has to be in place, and that's not a trivial thing to do. And then all of that structure is in place. Security and access roles have been fully defined, created, approved through the right process, and they are in place. And we are putting a documentation repository together to make sure that we have everything in one place for the payroll system, and to make sure that our documentation is stored and accessible, both technical and functional documentation, not just training material, so that we're positioning ourselves to be able to maintain this properly long term. Okay. Before I leave that behind, you can see from the chart that the first payroll date, the specific dates here are on the very bottom of the chart here for payroll cutover. The pay period, first pay period that we would be live with would start on in the middle of March 14th through the 27th, running the payroll process to produce checks on the 5th of April. So we'd cut over mid-March.
So Director, is the March 16th cut over a drop dead date, or could you miss that by a couple days and still make the 4/5 payroll date.
No, that's a drop dead date. We have to make that date. So in other words, that's the date that when we cut over payroll. Well, let me restate that. Could we miss that by a day or two? Possibly, but it would put an extreme amount of stress on the go live date. So we really, I'm going to say that it's as drop dead as it can be. We really need to make that date. So. That's the
Okay,
cutover from all of the production files. All the employee records need to be there. So, and so it's a very strict schedule that occurs over, you can see, over just a couple of days there. So it's got to be staged logistically just right.
so you have for completion on Friday, 10 to identify all parties requiring communication. Was that accomplished?
I believe so. I mean, I think that we're always finding maybe another person or two or a group or two, but I think we have a communication plan that's actually been in existence for a while. We're just adopting it to the new schedule. So we did have a plan in place. We have some things that we had to resequence to make sure that communication plan is aligned with what we're doing now.
Okay, thank you.
Chair,
Other
if I may ask a question.
Ms.
Nancy?
Baker.
So in just looking at this on these dates, beginning payroll training, 150 days, September 14th. So that means from September 14th, 150 days out, which is what, 5 months? Am I
Well,
correct? Yeah.
that includes all of the preparation for training, not the training itself. So I'm sorry, I didn't show the details here. I can certainly do that. I didn't come prepared to do that, but I can send that to you. That's the entire process of not only doing the training, but preparing for the training, which takes some time.
All right, and same with workforce management, 100 days beginning October 12th. That's going to take
Yes, ma'am.
4 months. Okay,
Yes, the details are unfortunately underneath that.
I see. Okay, good. Just making sure I was reading it correctly.
So Director, on the item that says interfaces, it's due on Friday, 11/27/20. How much flexibility is there on that?
We don't have a lot of flexibility in any of these pieces. I'm not sure how much slack, I hate to use the word slack time, that's a project term. It sounds like we're not working when I use that term, but how much flexibility we have in the schedule, some, but again, we fully expect to hold the entire team and the individuals for each of these areas responsible for those dates. So I'd have to look to see exactly how much flex we have. How much flex we have would depend on whatever else might have been delayed in front of that also. So there's some flex in the schedule overall, but not a lot. So we just need to make sure that we make the dates.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. On to finances. This is the same explanation just in front of our financial statements that I had last time, that we are continuing to and will continue to split out our operating cost from our implementation cost, and then some costs that are operational get allocated specifically to departments where they've asked us to do some specific things or provide something specific to that department. So our financial statements reflect that. In summary, this is our current financial statement, comparing the 8/30 excuse me, the 8/31 statement with their September 30th statement. We have, the thing that I want to point out here is that I'd mentioned on the bottom of this slide, I detailed out what I said a little earlier. I said we're making some changes to some of our contracting support. What we're finding out is we need more of in-force time on some things that were not originally in scope. Some of the county-related things that we have to do for parallel, we could really use in-force assistance on. So in combination with that, I have a resignation from one of the consultants that we had originally put under the 1099 contract. So what we're doing is taking all of that into account, rotating off one of the 1099 consultants, rotating in under a change order more time from Infor, and making some reductions in contracts, just trying to be prudent about how we're managing the implementation staff. The net out of all of that to make these adjustments is $8,820 estimated at this point. So minimal, and that's what I meant earlier when I said minimal impact to the changes we're making, but I think they're really necessary adjustments to the team to make sure that we have the right resources available at the right time all the way around. The way that the cost split out here, I just would highlight a couple other things here, is that we did take the hours that were reported for county staff. I know that there was a report that OBM published, and that is split between operational and implementation costs. So of the 250,000 or so that was in that report for the 2020 costs, everything prior to that was already accounted for, but for the 2020 cost, $137,601 is what was allocated to the capital cost for implementation. The remainder fall into operational costs. And those
Director,
all of those
a
numbers are
question.
reflected in detail.
The the question I have is about the one person where you said you have a resignation. Was that initiated by the employee or by us?
That was implemented primarily by us.
Okay. So we decided we don't need those services, but we need the Infor services.
Yes, sir. It was the trade-off was we didn't need to do both, and we needed these particular Infor services at this time more, and so that was the decision that we made.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. The details for these reports are here. I'm not planning to go through all of this, but there's specific change orders that you will see in Board of Control related to what I just spoke about. And they're reflected in this change history that supports the total numbers that we have in the summary. So we'll be getting the details to the Board of Control here as quickly as possible here, very shortly. So in addition, this is the normal format for the budget forecast. Again, I'm not planning to go through all the details of this. I'd already pointed out that this one line that ERP Core Program Team hours is the county, again, that's the county employees hours spent on ERP. And this is what you're looking at here are the capitalized side of those hours, okay? In the next slide, same format, but you'll see the ERP Core Team. What we're looking at here is the operational side of those hours. Eventually, everything will move from capitalized hours to operational hours as the full system goes live, and it just maintains from that point forward. And that's the summary for ERP. Are there any questions from the floor?
So, Director, we thank you for the presentation. It appears that a number of things that were identified as problems in the last report were cleaned up in the meantime, so we're happy to see the progress. And I'm thinking about Monday, November 30th as a date for our next update. Is that a date that would work for you?
I'm sure it would. Yes, sir.
And that would be a couple days after that interface milestone date, so we can check up on the whether we're on timeline with that item.
Yes, sir.
So I would ask my colleagues once more if there's any other questions before we move on. Hearing none, we appreciate the progress made and thanks very much for the update.
Okay,
Thank
Thank
you,
you, sir.
Jack. Good work.
thank you.
We are now going to move on to miscellaneous business. And I would just like to bring to everybody's attention that the discussion with our ERP consultant, Zig Berzens, in the committee of the whole will take place this Thursday, the 8th at 1 o'clock. And also we begin the 1 month long mid-biennial budget update process on November 9th. That's also a Monday. That's when we go through the process of making whatever adjustments need to be made to the budget for the second year of the biennium, which is 2021. So I would ask my colleagues if anybody else has any miscellaneous business. Hearing none, there being no further business that commands our attention, the Finance and Budgeting Committee is adjourned. Thanks, everybody, for your time and attention.
Good day.
Thank you. Have a good day.